Welcome to Aldar Experts podcast. And today we have a very, very amazing guest, Mr. Peter Crone, the mind architect. He came all the way from the States to talk at Aldar Experts at the Cayenne Festival. So thank you so much for the time and for being here with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Peter, as we were talking earlier, we are in a very transactional industry.
Yeah.
The team, the sales brokers, they live a very hard life, commission-based, chasing the next transaction.
Yeah.
So from your point of view and all the teachings you've been sharing over the last few years,
Yeah.
what, first of all, differentiate a good salesperson? What are the skills they have to have besides the typical, soft skills? And what do you think would make someone in this day and age connect better with customers?
I think they're interlinked, right? So what makes a great salesperson and how they connect with customers, I think they're sort of interchangeable. So I obviously work with high-end performers in sports too, and it reminds me of, say, even like professional golfers who aren't on salary like some of my baseball players or basketball players. They
Sure.
have to make the cut in order to earn some money over the weekend. So
Sure.
very similar in terms of it's a commission-based, inextricably connected to performance.
Right.
And so for me, in any walk of life, regardless if it's Aldar, a golfer or whatever, it's the degree to which you have trust. Meaning, if we look at the nature of life, and this is one of the things that really started my career, we're all wired to try and survive. The brain is designed to predict and protect. And yet, the very nature of life is uncertainty, right? I didn't know today that we had it in our schedule, of course, but I didn't know what we were going to be talking about. And we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after. And so if you look at the very fabric of life, life itself is uncertain, okay? So that's one component. But then the human predisposition is to survive. So what does that mean? Our brain is always trying to find out what's going to happen. And there's the paradox, there's the conflict. Life is uncertain, but as a human being, we're always trying to find out certainty. And that creates suffering. So the person who's most preoccupied trying to figure it out is usually in a state of stress or mild fear, which itself becomes self-fulfilling. I always say fear will break its own heart. So if we're living from a place of scarcity, we're worried about what's going to happen, then the energy that we emit in a world that is connected through the unified field, then we're actually, quote unquote, manifesting the realization of our concerns. So the greatest performers, sales, sports, business, entertainment, are the ones that can be comfortable with uncertainty because they have a deeper sense of both like trust and commitment. That no matter what transpires, that has no reflection on you. So rejection, I understand, can be an experience, but it's not a truth. Really, in reality, what happened is someone said no or they don't want to. But to the person who's fully committed, that is no excuse to quit. For the person who feels a sense of inadequacy, they will use every piece of evidence they can to justify that they are somehow less than or they're not going to succeed. It's a great quote by Henry Ford. He said, "Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right." So the greatest performers are the ones that believe they can, and that becomes self-fulfilling.
And how does faith play with that part as well? We actually, before you came on stage, we had Bear Grylls as well, and he was talking about fear. He was talking about, rejection and faith as well. Do you think faith is important when it comes to your belief system?
It is, I mean, hugely, and especially in this region. It's not something I touch on. I make a distinction between faith and trust. I think faith is more based in somebody's predisposition to a particular religion or a dogma, whereas trust to me is a little bit more universal, right? There's a confidence that comes to me with trust, and for a lot of people, they might rely on their faith, and that can give confidence. I think that's amazing. But for me, I like to look at more the mechanics of what actually creates outcomes, right? So outcomes are always a byproduct of the actions and behaviors we take. That's inextricably connected. Every result we have is because of what we did. But then we look at, well, what drives what we do? Behavior is driven by a combination of our thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings, our emotions. And so when people go to even improve on their sales, they might go to an expert and how can I develop a better rapport with customers? That's really in the arena of behavior. How can I change my behavior? Which is helpful. You know, if I like to play sports, I play tennis and golf, and I might go and get some tips from an instructor. But beneath that, the belief systems and our emotions are way more powerful because they inform our behaviors. And then underneath that, as the analogy I used on stage, the foundation of somebody's persona is really what drives everything. So if at the deepest level, somebody thinks that they're not enough, or they're not going to be okay, and they're being driven by fear, their thoughts and their feelings are going to be informing their actions. So what does that look like in real life? They might be a little bit nervous. They might speak too quickly. So that, to your first question, they're not fully present. They're not fully listening to the person because they're being driven by their own agenda, you know, all well intended, but they're trying to accomplish an outcome, which means you're not necessarily meeting or listening to the customer's needs. So I always like to play with archetypes because I've worked with many actors through the years, and they literally as a career have to pretend to be somebody. So I would play with, imagine if you as a salesperson are a billionaire. Now just imagine, just because it's all make-believe anyway. So if you imagine that you have this next meeting or you have this next client, but you're coming from the position that you're already a billionaire, I would imagine that people would immediately feel a shift in their internal energy, which is not that they become blasé or that they're not, quote unquote, committed to a good outcome or that they, you know, want to make a sale, but it would have less of the urgency and the fear. And that energy, ironically, is self-fulfilling, just in either way. Like I said, fear will break its own heart, meaning that when we're coming from a place of scarcity, inadequacy, and worry, we tend to behave in a certain way that is the precursor to the outcome being fulfilled. Conversely, if we live from the future that is already fulfilled, if we know that we're going to be more than okay, then it creates in this moment a sense of peace, a sense of stillness, which is the greatest currency. Because to me, I work with some of the most successful people on the planet, materially, but emotionally, the most bankrupt. So to me, the new definition of success is not external wealth and trappings, but it's an internal state of peace. And those people that you're working with typically are going to feel that more, which then gives them a sense of trust and comfort with your salespeople so that they will feel, wow, this is somebody that I feel I can buy into their energy of trust, that I know that I'm in good hands. They have integrity. I'm going to be well taken care of. When you're in the presence of somebody who's a little anxious, they interrupt, they're a little nervous, it doesn't give the other person a sense of ease. And that is, of course, a precursor to dis-ease that most people experience. So that, to me, is, you know, one of the things in terms of faith or trust, whichever you prefer, that gives you the ability to know with a complete sense of internal calm, my future is taken care of. I don't know what it looks like, and I don't know when, but that allows me to not worry about a future that hasn't happened yet.
And it's interesting because you talk about having met or trained a lot of people with a lot of wealth, but internally they are poor in a way. Why is that? What's missing?
Oftentimes it's a compensation, right? Meaning that if we have an injury, say on one leg, we'll tend to compensate and strengthen the other. True. So oftentimes when somebody, I knew a client of mine, he was a big real estate developer in Australia, one of the biggest in terms of commercial real estate, a multi-billionaire. And when I met with him, he was struggling with some health issues, and he was also struggling in his relationship. And what we recognized is that when he grew up, he said he remembered watching his mum be on all fours cleaning floors. And it was one of, I think, 2 or 3 jobs she had to provide for her family, which is commendable. But as a little boy, he remembered saying to himself, I will never be poor. Not as a judgment of his mother, but he just saw how tiring it was. And so that internal narrative is like a virus that we can never get away from. So he amassed a lot of wealth, but he was still being driven by the scarcity of I will never be poor. And so that's why he was also struggling physically, because he was being driven by the lack and the feeling that there's something wrong, even though his bank accounts showed quite the contrary. So it's usually a compensation.
Interesting. And when you think about, again, the amount of people you have met in your career, is there a pattern that you see on people when it comes to hold them to the ultimate success that they can have?
For sure, there's patterns in both directions. Most people are by default. You know, this is something that I cover in my mastermind, which we talked about and we'll maybe chat to in a little bit. But right now, human beings have what I call the 1.0 mindset. It's an operating system that by design is driven to survive. What that means is that the narratives we're being wired by and programmed by are based in some sort of limitation. I'm not going to be okay. I'm not safe. I'm not enough. I'm not performing enough, whatever it is. And then that creates fear as a predominant emotion, which leads to suffering. Suffering then cascades into disease, and disease creates more scarcity and dysfunction in relationships. That's the current operating system we have. So success can be sometimes a byproduct of that as a compensation, right? We live in fear and terror. We're white knuckling it through life, but we're going to constantly adapt to try and survive. Again, you might get external success, but you're always trying to overcome this invisible void that can never be filled. So we all know people like that. It looks good, but ultimately to me there's not fulfillment, there's not joy, there's not a real sense of accomplishment or presence. So the people that I help, and immense success, is when you shift from a world of limitation into a world of internal freedom. You're not defined by limiting language and dialogues.
Right.
Which then instead of fear, you step into more like love and acceptance. Instead of suffering, you now experience joy. Instead of disease, you tap into your natural vitality. Instead of any sort of scarcity, you tap into the natural abundance of the universe. It's an entirely different operating system, which is what I teach, through my mastermind. So the people, at least that I help, who create incredible success internally and out, are coming from an entirely different perspective. Mm-hmm. That's the most sustainable, and that's the one that creates true longevity, because you're not fighting life, you're not fighting your internal sense of inadequacy, insecurity, or scarcity. Mm.
And in terms of helping people to stay, for example, you said in the present moment, sounds like a very basic thing, but it's almost rare today with the phones, and when brokers are with customers, they are barely even looking in the eye, and they're already on the phone with the next deal, right? Is there any tips you can give to help people be more focused and more self-aware of their day-to-day?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And if I could wave a magic wand and have everyone be present, it would be a very different world.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
So the irony is, I've worked again with some of the biggest sports teams around the world, and so there's sports psychologists that many teams now work with that will say, be present. Like every athlete, at least, and I think your salespeople are in their own way athletes, right? They're trying to perform. Yeah. Everybody knows that flow state is where things happen effortlessly, beautifully, and abundantly. Yeah. The trouble is, presence, like you and I here, is our natural state. So meaning we can't not be here. Literally. What happens is we attend to thoughts which are based in time. History, where we have some sort of regret, disappointment, frustration, something didn't go away. So a salesperson might be going to the next meeting, but they now actually are starting to second guess, what did they say? I shouldn't have said that. Oh, if I'd only said this. And now they're in a dialogue in their head about something that's already happened, it's finished. They're not in that location anymore, but their ego is maintaining some feeling of failure, which is now spilling over into the next meeting, which ironically is the obstacle to them performing in the next one, right? Or equally, we can show up to something and then the person is preoccupied with the outcome and they're not listening to what the person's saying. So that mechanism of being sort of occupying and attending to past or future thoughts is the obstacle to presence. So the tip is I use this cute little expression, which is let go, don't know. Right? Let go of whatever's happened, it's finished. And I write in quotes, as you may know, but one of my more popular ones is, what happened, happened, and couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't. And if you really embrace that, it completely reconciles your history so you can be at peace. Even things that didn't go the way you wanted, even things that were embarrassing, even things that didn't work, it couldn't have gone any different because it didn't. And the person you were that made the choice that you made at the time, 1 day ago, 1 week ago, or 10 years ago, was the person who made the appropriate choice. But now hopefully you've evolved and you've grown, so to trust that you'll make better choices. So reconciling history, recognizing, so I let go, and then don't know is that the future, as I said earlier, is uncertain. Can you find peace not knowing? And if you let go and you're okay with not knowing, you land right here.
That's amazing. And for a final question, and,
Yeah.
and after, as you said, I want to talk about your course
Sure.
and what amazing things we're going to do for the audience and the brokers from Aldar.
Yes.
We were talking earlier about, you know, how impressed you were with all the real estate development, the ideas, the concepts. You know, you've been traveling through the UAE over the last few days, now Abu Dhabi. What would you like to see if you had you could choose? You know, we are talking a lot about, we're in Fahad Island. This is our first wellness island.
Yeah.
We are very focused on creating experiences for customers that, you know, allow them to be grounded.
Yeah.
What would you like to see if you could add things into projects and
particular
home?
area?
Yeah, for your home, yeah. What are the opportunities on wellness?
I think in your industry, there's so much beautiful opportunity. Obviously, people love the word sustainability, right? So I'm sure as a company, with the impact you're having, you're looking at the type of materials you're using, you know. There's so much waste in all sorts of areas of life, not just in construction and building, but food. And so I think, you know, the degree to which we can be conscious of how we are in harmony with our environment. You know, a lot of people are now into biohacking, and I tend to be more into optimization or bioharmonizing. So I think that's one thing. And then I think in people's homes themselves, and I'm so curious to see what you're creating. It sounds like amazing projects, but to actually get away from smart homes and get more into like homes that really support optimization of true health and wellness. Because we know that even Wi-Fi on at night, or all the EMFs that we're bombarded by through electricity, dirty electricity particularly, you know, it impacts because we're frequency beings, we're vibrational sentient beings. And so the degree to which we're in an environment that has got some sort of interference is you can have all of the toys in the house, hyperbarics, red light, cold plunge, peptides, organic food. But if you're living in an environment vibrationally that's in disharmony or dissonance with you, so I would really love to see the understanding of how vibration and frequency in a space really impacts both the wellness, the energy, the productivity of human beings. Conversely, right now, it tends to suppress or be an oppressive energy. So I think that would be something very exciting for the future.
No, and that's exactly things that we are thinking about every day, how we optimize life. And I think as you know, the UAE is so diverse in terms of providing people opportunities to, you know, invest on themselves and, you know, from a wellness perspective. And it's just a great space right now. And it's so amazing that everybody has this consciousness now about themselves, life, and not just, as you say, about technology. Yeah. So thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure.
I would like to talk a little bit about the Mastermind and what you're going to do for us. So tell us about the course and what are, you know, the benefits that the Aldar crowd can enjoy.
I love it. And I just wanted to do something special for your group particularly. But before that, I just really want to acknowledge the likes of you and the company for this area. Why I'm coming here and I'm going to be coming more is because it truly embodies for me the realm of possibility. Like it feels like here, not only are visions realized very quickly, whereas in some countries it's like mañana and it's forever you know, a conversation. Whereas here it's like if someone believes in an idea and there's obviously some sort of consensus and support, it just happens. And that to me is phenomenal because I love to talk about abracadabra as a word. You know, its translation is as I speak, so I create. Yes. And the power of the word, you know, so I just want to acknowledge you and your group because you really are up to big things. With regard to my Mastermind, it's my most powerful offering. It's a bold statement, but I think it's the most powerful thing anyone can do to understand how the mind currently is wired for a little bit of self-destruction and limitation. And actually in this new operating system that I teach during this 3.5 months, but you get the whole year to be able to go through the work. It's an incredible community of like-minded souls who are really committed to maximizing every arena of their life, their health, their relationships, their wealth, their sense of purpose, and also for parents, because that's a big topic we talk about. How do we influence the next generation? Yes. And so the Mastermind I lead personally, 35 hours. We meet every 2 weeks virtually, so you can be anywhere in the world. It's all recorded, so if you miss a live event, it doesn't matter. And then in between, we have these beautiful modules where 3 of my mentors, they integrate the theory to help, because it's important to understand, but also to integrate. And then we have 3 embodiment coaches. What does that actually look like and feel like? And then we repeat that for 8 modules, and I cover everything from what is the mind? Why do we have these self-sabotaging tendencies? What is it to truly live in a world where you are fully maximizing your potential? How do we get out of these limitations that are by default part of the human experience? And we're starting, by the time this comes out, 21st of February. So as a gesture of your gracious hosting me here, I wanted to offer a code for anybody who wants to look into it. It's just Aldar, which is appropriate, and it gives them 10% off, which is quite significant. I hope people join. I know there are people from all around the world. So the community alone is like... The most amount of feedback we get is people say, I've never been in a community that felt both so inspiring but so safe, where nobody's judged, everybody's allowed to share whatever they're going through. And some of the stories when I work with people are quite moving, like really people have been through tragedy. But then to see their experience of true liberation and joy on the other side is, it's just pure possibility. So hopefully people will see the opportunity to get out of an old operating system and upgrade what it is to be human. And as I say, the most expensive or costly way to live is to stay within your limitations.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I would love to see people there and to help inspire you and your ecosystem, because the more you have people who are functioning, fully in all arenas, then obviously it's a win-win for everybody.
And again, Aldar Experts is a forum of growth. It's a forum we are always trying to get our brokers to improve themselves. So guys, take advantage of this super opportunity. It's a very exclusive course. You got the Aldar code, so enjoy. Yeah. And once again, Peter, thank you so much to come to Fahad Island, our wellness island. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I can't wait to come back and see some of the incredible projects you're creating and hopefully be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.